Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. You walk into the office and you have a regulatory affairs or regulatory director, and his or her job is to manage customer complaints that are filed with the regulators. And as you know, those complaints have to be handled very carefully and specifically in accordance with the rules for that particular state. They have to be fulsome in terms of their response with all the documentation, and they also have to be timely. And you have a range of dates by which those responses have to be filed for each state. For example, in Texas, it's 21 days, where in Ohio, you have to give an initial response within 3 days and ultimately respond within 10 days. So there's a range of things that you have to be on the lookout for. Now, here's a problem I face. You have this one person responsible to responding to all of the complaints, and there's no transparency. You don't know, where she is on the complaints or he is on the complaints. You don't know, what the potential nature of the response is, how fulsome it is, if there's any issues in getting the data to respond in a fulsome way. And you don't know, frankly, if the responses are being filed on time, because that's all being managed in the typical use of Office software, which is through emails, Word, Excel spreadsheets. The only way you're going to find out what the status of the report filing is by asking for a report, an Excel spreadsheet or some other thing, which is entirely within the control of the person creating it. So cautionary tale is I ran into one of those situations where the person responsible was fudging the reports and not being forthcoming about the lateness of the responses, or the fact that there were some that had the difficulty to respond because they couldn't get the data from other parts of the company. So I had to go and fix that. And what I did is I used a cloud-based system called Airtable. And what it is essentially a spreadsheet on steroids. Is quasi-spreadsheet, is quasi-database. Basically, if you know how to create a spreadsheet, you can create this Airtable table database. But because it's in the cloud and it can be viewed by multiple people and worked on as a one workplace or workspace, there's much more transparency and accountability, and frankly, being able to be audited. So as you enter, for example, login complaints from a particular source, you can track all the information, and you can set it up as sort of a workflow, where there's step 1, logging in, step 2, investigating, step 3, reaching conclusions, preparing a response. And every responsible party, anybody who's involved in the entire process, for example, in the investigation, you might be calling someone from sales to tell you to see the documentation that was provided by the sales agent to make sure that the information was accurate and not deceptive or something to that effect. And you want that person who's responsible in sales to provide you that documentation and show her as a collaborator that she actually produced the information and is the responsible party for that. You also want a workflow that will also show you that if you log in a complaint from state X, that the due date is automatically calculated so that everyone knows when that complaint is due, and you can have automatic alerts or alarms that will tell you if you're coming within the deadline within a day or two, or you've passed the deadline. And then also you want to be able to take all that data that you collect across all of the states and have it summarized perhaps in tables to show, which states are producing the most complaints, which states have the most on-time responses versus ones that are late. So you could have it in real time, a report that management can see. Well, when I created this in Airtable, that's exactly what it did. And frankly, my CEO was thrilled because now I could give him a link and a view so he could just check at any time he wanted what the status of the complaints were. He could see where they were coming from, if there were any that were due, what the nature of the complaints. It provided an invaluable resource to him to make him feel comfortable that everyone was doing their job, that we were cooperating and getting the information that we needed from all of the other parties in the company. So I've taken that and refined it and created more details and explanations in this table so that you can use it. Because there's really no good mechanism that you can find in any of the CRM and billing systems that I've seen that will do what this Airtable will do. And I think you'll find it a very powerful tool. And frankly, unless you want certain features, you can even get this for free. And the number of records that you can include are really far in excess of any number of complaints you would get in any one year for any one table that you create. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at my workflow database for customer complaints in the process. And you can find that at my article on the customer complaint workflow. And then you can take a tour through the database and see if it works for you and gives you comfort, because I think it's a very powerful tool for a new startup to have, and it will be a good defense to any claims by any regulator that you're not responding on time or you're not responding with enough data. It'll also help you set up an early warning system to know where, for example, you've got a break in your system. For example, if you can't find the TPV recordings, that's an important thing to know, and that you should be able to take them and actually put them into a field in this table so that you have all of the data available, and that you can then draw conclusions based on all that data as to where there may be any trends with respect to customer complaints and thinking of methodologies how to improve them. So I hope you find this helpful. If you have any ideas for improving it or anything else that you would like created that is along this line, please let me know in the comments, and I will see what I can do to make your life a little bit easier, because that's the goal of Retail Energy Wizard. Thank you.